Hello. I'm going to cover how to get started with the Intuit Quickbooks Python API, specifically with a Django web application. If anybody has questions, please let me know. I'll try to answer them during the live stream. So here we go. Basically, let's assume you're already signed in to the Intuit developer dashboard. So sign up for the program. What you're gonna want to do is make an app. Create an app. We're gonna make a QuickBooks Online and Payments app, not the legacy one. I'm gonna use the current one. So we're gonna call it test. My initials. Set some scopes. I think we can use both accounting and payments. I don't think there's a problem if you choose both of them. And then you'll be dropped here into this sort of like quick start stuff. Sadly, none of these are actually Django Python. So we go here. I'm not going to be using these after this video, so these are throwaway credentials, but basically at this point you've sort of created a QuickBooks app and some credentials for that. The next thing you're going to want to do is go to this example project, which is actually linked through the documentation. Whoops. If you dig through the documentation, you'll find many sort of examples. So Intuit Developer, they have all kinds of examples for various stacks, even among Python. Even among Python examples, there's ones that are using Django, some are not. So the one that is most suitable for our use case is the Django one. So this is Django sample app. 17 months old as of this recording, but it works fine. I just ran it before the video to verify that it works. So what you're going to want to do is clone it. And I'm in my programming directory, so I go ahead and clone it. CD into the directory, and if you were to actually go through the README, it's fairly not too many instructions. You want to CD into the directory, you want to install the requirements, I went ahead, I didn't make a virtual environment for this, I just dumped it into my global environment. You're going to want to configure the app. That's typically in settings.py for Django applications. Stuff is at the bottom, so you're going to want to put the app stuff that we just generated over here. Client ID. So grab this one. Grab the secret. The redirect URI, that's a generic sort of OAuth thing, and we're actually going to flip it later, but for now we're just going to have it, we're going to instruct QuickBooks to redirect to our app. We have like a separate, this example app has a separate callback that'll handle that, and we'll see what that does. You can also, so down here, when you make a brand new redirect URI, they actually provide a playground of sorts. We're actually going to show that afterwards. So there's I think it is educational to go through that. So, but for the first time around, we're going to show just what would this app be doing in most cases, and then we'll fiddle with the playground. So let's save that. And okay, so we have configured it. ID, secret, redirect URL, environment, keep it on sandbox, make sure the same redirect URL is entered in your Intuit developer app. Okay, so here's something that could trip you up, is that you're actually supposed to make these the same, right? In order for it to work with this particular Django example that they provide, you want to make those consistent, and then you're ready to run. You actually, another thing that trips people up is that you don't have to migrate for this example. I believe there's no migrations because it's just an example. There's really no data model. There's not even really anything in models.py. See, this is empty, so that's why there's no migration, because the models.py is empty. I saw that sort of tripping people up in the GitHub discussion. I did a typo, copying it over, so that needs to be a string. Do it again. All right, so the web server is running at 8,000. You can test that, 8,000. All right, now you would expect to be able to sign in using QuickBooks account. You see this sort of dialogue, and it's saying, hey, if you were to pretend that this is like myproject.com and I allow people to sign in using their QuickBooks account, if they click on this button, they would then have to sort of confirm, saying, hey, are you sure? This is QuickBooks talking directly to the user. Hey, are you sure that you want to allow something.com to sign in with your account? And then you can say yes or no. We'll say yes. Behind the scenes, if we go over like what OAuth is a sort of a provider. And if I could find like a simple example. So imagine that this is QuickBooks and this is something.com and this is the resource owner. Well, in any case, so QuickBooks and this app sort of did a negotiation behind the scenes, and this app got an access token that's unique to the user that signed in. And now the app is allowed to make privilege requests against the QuickBooks API. And so at this point, we can actually do this example app ships to three other examples further downstream. Like once you're authenticated, you can do a QuickBooks API call. And this is like a privilege query against the QuickBooks API that can only happen if you have if you're signed in, which means that you have like an access token. The refresh token is something that is done for, so the tokens expire, and so refreshing a token means that behind the scenes we'll use a valid token, and before it expires we ask for a new token. So that way we basically extend the use of a token, and this is usually done automatically and without the user knowing. So and that's for convenience, right? So if you keep on requesting for new tokens before the first token expired, then you can kind of have a valid token indefinitely. That's the strategy there. But at the same time, we want to expire our tokens, because that would be a security vulnerability. What if you granted a token that it never expires and that somehow got into the wrong hands? You would want to, that's like a bad situation. And revoke a token, I guess you can revoke a token. Does that mean that this is revoked? Seems to be an error. Maybe we can sign in again. Okay, so maybe that is a edge case in the example app that wasn't really fleshed out. So if you revoke a token and then you try to do app QBO QuickBooks online request, it sort of barfs on line 122. Maybe we can look at that. If we went to 122, looks like it seems to barf over here. If not response okay, do something. But response.dat status code sequence item 0. Something in here is expecting a string, but it got some bytes. Well, anyway, if anybody wants to go ahead and fix that in the example app, I'm sure they'd accept that. What else? Okay, so one other thing I wanted to cover. Let's see, 12 minutes. One other thing that I wanted to cover is I did find, so the original one they provide is actually interesting as well. So maybe this would help clarify more of like kind of like what OAuth is doing behind the scenes. So if you instead had, this is a mistake that I did actually. I had originally specified the redirect URI to be the sandbox URI that QuickBooks provides. And so if we were to just try that out to see what would happen and how the app would behave differently, we could, let's see, connect to QuickBooks API. If we were to, yeah, so you see, you get this thing. And this is like a sandbox, like a playground that Intuit provides. And it is not the callback URL that the example app tries to show you. So here you can kind of play around. You can play around with the scopes, and it's essentially you get an authorization code, and then you can get a token. And here, this is actually a pretty good view. So this is an HTTP request, not quite a curl request. And this is what the response would be. And then you can also make calls for perhaps the accounting scope and get some company information. So the idea is, and this is refreshing the token. So this is the strategy that your app should employ to basically refresh the token. Tokens seem to expire every hour. So you would want to, or the access token seems to expire every hour. The refresh token seems to expire every 100 days. This is how you can get another one and sort of extend the life, your authorization life. And so the idea is, okay, you might be asking, well, what's all this for? The idea is that you can use this API Explorer to figure out, to determine exactly what does your Django need to do. So once you kind of understand that what the HTTP requests are that should be created and what the responses are like, you're supposed to then write equivalent Django/Python requests code to do these things. So that's kind of what you can do with this stuff. It's this is pure HTTP. So the idea is that if you were working with like a Laravel app or a Node.js app, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it all needs to speak HTTP. So I'll just close that out. So if you don't care about that, you would just revert it here. So it goes back to the callback endpoint. I'll go over here and oops, revert this to what the example calls for. Callback, save. Now when you sign in, basically Intuit knows that it needs to redirect the customer, the person's browser to /app/callback. And if you are comfortable with Django, you would understand that you basically read the URLs. And so far we've only covered really the index. The callback is accessed by the browser because Intuit redirects the browser to this endpoint. And then we'll read that inside callback, it'll actually redirect to connected, I believe. So here's /connected. If you keep an eye on the URL, you'll see. And so what happens is that you hit the root, and that gets sort of decorated with /app, but that's totally minor. At some point, when you click on this button, where is it? It should. So if we study the view, you see that button actually goes to /OAuth. It's an OnClick App OAuth. I wouldn't have written this like this myself. I would have just stuck it in href, but whatever. The browser accesses App OAuth. App OAuth routes to this thing where it sort of instantiates the auth client. So this is the auth client, is the thing from the Intuit. So Intuit provides the Python library. Auth client here gets authorized, and we redirect the user to some URL. I believe that URL is on Intuit server. It does the thing. Do you want to authorize? If yes, it redirects you back to the callback. So that's why app /callback ends up here. If we took a close look at what's actually happening in the Django API log, you'll see that it's sort of hitting OAuth. In that window dialog thing, it says either yes or no. If you say yes, it'll actually redirect the user, instruct the browser back to /callback. It does get hit here, and then that is going to redirect the user to the /connected. So let's say callback, yada yada. If everything looks good, it would redirect the user to app connected here. Also note, and this is something that tripped me up, is that this app uses Django namespaces for the routes. So you see here that their app name is blah. So that means that you need to sort of prefix the URL names with the app's namespace. Right? I hope that was useful. If you have any questions, please let me know. If you need help with Django development or QuickBooks API development, please reach out to me. I am available.